Back here on HQ Spotlight. So we did the NFC North schedule breakdown. Now let's talk about the NFC South. So how many times have we said the division is wide open when we're talking about the NFC South? It feels like a lot. And it's been one of the weakest divisions in football as of late, with 3 of the 4 teams finishing with records under 500 4 times in the last 7 seasons, including last year, although it has belonged to the Bucs. Recently speaking, they're looking for their 5th straight division title. We're also most likely going to see a full season with Michael Penix Jr. under center there in Atlanta, a new quarterback in town. We don't know who exactly for the Saints. And we saw glimpses of Bryce Young kind of getting his stuff together towards the latter half of last season. So can the Panthers build upon that? A lot of questions. So we did the whole schedule breakdown with the NFC North. Now we're going to do it with the NFC South. We're talking about the Bucs first and foremost. They get 4 primetime games and a Week 9 bye, looking for their 5th straight division title. Kyle, I'll come to you first. When you look at the schedule for the Bucs, where are you at on them? Do you think they're going to succeed once again in this division?
You know, when you hear my record for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you're going to kind of pause.
I had to do a double take. I'm not going to lie.
But I love this guy, Baker Mayfield. I love the way that this group has been able to adjust to multiple guys at the coordinator position. Leadership is unquestioned in that their quarterback, Baker Mayfield, can handle anything. Even if the sky is falling around him, he will compete. He will find a way to win games at home, in enemy territory. I love the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've got them at 12-5. And you know what? There's even a Bucs fan upstairs that said, "You are smoking crack right now." And I said, no. You just need to watch Baker Mayfield a little bit more.
I'll say this, they should have been 12-5 last year. They coughed up some ugly games. The Falcons won both of them last year, most notably. I think this team is far and away the class of the division. They are the most complete team. They have some dominant units. I look at this offense, and I don't see a lot more talented offenses around the NFL. With that offensive line, Emeka Egbuka, who they added in the draft, that trio of wide receivers now, and then Baker Mayfield running the show. And I love what they did also in the second and third rounds, adding 2 cornerbacks, probably the weakest part of that defense, and they just made it so that it's kind of foolproof now. One guy goes down, they have so many guys they can throw in there at corner. I went 13-4. I think they are not going to drop a single division game. I think they have a chokehold on this division, and I think they could be your 1 seed in the NFC.
Well, I'm glad he talked about the corners, because these Bucs fans, they were clamoring to get a cornerback, and they wanted one. Obviously, in the first round, they got Egbuka there at the top, but then you said it. They went and got 2 corners. That's the only thing that held them back from really making the big run last year, was the secondary, being able to stop the pass. They addressed that. So you can talk about the coach leaving all you want, but they still got Baker Mayfield. They still got all their dudes. They're ready to play some football this year.
Yeah, speaking of the dudes, Jason Light done a good job last couple of years keeping the core guys intact, signing them to big deals, and then putting in pieces around them. Mike, you mentioned the Falcons, who went down to the wire with Atlanta in Tampa Bay. They thought they were a quarterback away. That's why they got Kirk Cousins and drafted Michael Penix Jr. Now it's Penix Jr. there. What do we think about the Falcons? How many wins for them?
I think the offense is going to be much more consistent. I think Penix at least gives you the ability to pass down the field that Kirk Cousins obviously never did. But I still just look at this defense and I'm like, they're not that good. You're relying on 2 rookies, your 2 rookie first-rounders. That is what you're relying on to rush the passer. And more often than not, we've seen throughout the annals of NFL history, rookies just have a tough time adjusting to the NFL, especially in the trenches, especially when it comes to rushing the passer. So that's going to be the big thing to watch. Is if those guys hit the ground running, yeah, they can go above this, but I think a lot of teams are going to score a lot of points against this Falcons defense. And if that's the case, I just see them kind of being an average football team. I have them going 8-9 this year.
When Michael Penix Jr. stepped into the driver's seat for this offense in Atlanta, it became one of the more fun offenses to watch.
He looked good.
In prime time, when he went toe-to-toe with Jaden Daniels on the road and took the league by storm, that was really where I said, I love this guy. Actually, I liked him. I liked him in college. He dealt with injury. He was up against a lot of stuff physically in college, which leads me to my next point. Is he going to be healthy? Because he's going to be out there for the entirety of the season. What's their contingency plan if he goes down? Because if he goes down, we got a lot of question marks in Atlanta. And to your point, a lot of those rookies expected to make a big impact on the defensive side of the ball. I've got them finishing up at 7-10 in the NFC South.
Well, it's back to Kirk Cousins if he goes down. And I don't think at this point,
okay,
we saw last
let's
year,
ask the same question for Kirk Cousins then. What happens if Kirk Cousins goes?
No, I mean, that's my worry, and why I was worried when they gave up that first rounder, the future first rounder. It's like Michael Penix had one of the worst injury histories you'll ever see from a prospect. Missed multiple seasons, had multiple different joints and ligament injuries. So I'd be a little worried about that if I'm the Falcons.
Throws a great ball.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, lefties just throw it back. It sounds like, right?
Let's talk about the Panthers. Not to bring the mood down or anything, but we saw glimpses of Bryce Young. Felt like he was starting to get things together towards the latter half of last season. They're returning to prime time in the schedule for the first time since 2023. Our producer, James, who is a Panthers fan, he has, concocted this stat, right? So week 1 against the Jags, the last 2 times that the Panthers opened the season against the Jaguars was 0-3-0-4 and 15-16, and those were Super Bowl runs. So if you're looking at this and the pieces that are in place, and Bryce Young and T-Mac that he's throwing the ball to, Kyle, is there another Super Bowl run in the Carolina Panthers' future for the upcoming season?
Get me some of what James is sipping, because I like it. I like where he's going with this. You know what? 0-3 was a long time ago. In 15, they had a guy by the name of Superman at quarterback, I believe. So, you know what? For Bryce Young, the guy on the screen right here, that's their quarterback, that's their leader, tremendous young man. I love everything that he's had to say and not had to say in his press conferences and on the field. The most important part, he has gotten better and better and better. I really like Coach Canales. I like the moves they made in the draft. I like addressing some of these defensive needs. That being said, 6-10 Carolina Panthers, which in my opinion will be a much better team than last year's team.
Yeah, I used to work at PFF. We used to do a lot of data analysis. We would call that a small sample size, having only 2 data points to support that Super Bowl run. And with this Carolina Panthers team,
not putting on your PFF cap, Mike. Oh my goodness.
I think it's going to be a lot better. I think it's going to look a lot better, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I look at this defense, and I still see massive holes throughout the roster. They were obviously so bad a year ago, and down the stretch it improved, but it only improved so much. I think Bryce Young gives you a floor, but that floor is still, I'm right in lockstep with Kyle, like a 6-win football.
Best part about that Jag stat is just opening up the season against Jacksonville. I don't even know if they won those games or not.
People will know by the end of this year that Bryce Young is the guy, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will no longer
Even Pete Prisco?
I was going to say,
it
is
will no
Pete going
longer
to
be a
believe you?
question. Hey, Pete thinks running backs grow on trees.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the Saints. No primetime games. One of 3 teams that do not have that honor going into the season here. Derek Carr retires, new head coach. Mike, give me the sense of New Orleans here, because I feel like it's going to be tough for them to collect a lot of wins, even a handful of wins this season.
Yeah, I thought last year they were primed for a bottoming out of sorts. They didn't get to, the top 3 pick that it would have taken to really get that quarterback of the future. But I think this year they're in prime position to be that team who does bottom out to a pick 1, pick 2, pick 3. There's not a lot of teams that are really in that rebuild mode. I think the Saints are firmly one of them, even if they don't want to go completely tear it down and build it back up. But there's just relying on so many older players to still make an impact on this roster. They're so thin at a lot of positions. I love their past draft, but again, we're relying on rookies to make a big impact for this team. I do think new head coach Kellen Moore, I just don't know if he has the talent there to do exactly what he wants to do offensively, and especially when you would see they're like Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck. I have this as a 2-win football team.
Yeah, I have them as a 2-win football team as well, and it's important to point out that the wins that Kellen Moore and his staff will be looking for are, did we get this roster move right? Do we get this draft pick right? Because, we're not going to go to the Super Bowl this year. We ain't winning the Super Bowl. Let's set ourselves up down the road. Let's build a culture. I like the guys in the offensive line room. Obviously, they've added to that group. They can shift some pieces around to get the best version of that offensive line. And whoever it is at the quarterback position can grow with Kellen Moore in that system, build that culture, and maybe they end up getting that number 1 pick next year. But 2-15 will probably guarantee you that.
Fellas, enjoyed it. Check out Pushing the Pile, the podcast from Kyle Long and Mike Renner. Let's wrap things up with the odds to win the division, which last year was basically a dead heat between Tampa Bay and Atlanta. But right now, as the guys have alluded to, looks like a clear favorite on the west coast of Florida with Tampa Bay, your betting favorite, plus 110.